Hello.
Hi, everybody. Page 337 of Ray Franz's In Search of Christian Freedom. Under the chapter Shepherds of the Flock, this is the subhead, Not Even a Hello to Them. Aside from whatever once-a-year contact elders may make with certain disfellowshipped or disassociated persons, the treatment of such ones otherwise remains the same. All witnesses not of the elder class are to avoid any association or communication with those in the disfellowshipped state, as they refer to it. While certain concession is made for a disfellowshipped family member residing within the family home, any relatives living outside are to be communicated with only when there is a family matter requiring this or some urgent need. The extreme rigidity of the policies is modeled on the harsh position taken by the religious leaders of Jesus' day. The Watchtower of September 15, 1981, page 21, quoted as corroboration of its policy this account of the treatment accorded those put out of the synagogues. And here they quote from Alfred Edersheim and his discussion of the background of the Jewish policy of shunning. More about Edersheim at the end of the video. Here's the quote anyway from Edersheim. Henceforth he was like one dead. He was not allowed to study with others. No social intercourse was to be held with him. He was not even to be shown the road. He might, indeed, buy the necessaries of life, but it was forbidden to eat or drink with such an one.
Note that this was not, as in the case of Paul's exhortation to Corinthian Christians, a matter of personal decision, but synagogue members were forbidden by religious authority to act otherwise toward those expelled from the synagogue. This Jewish practice finds precise parallel in the treatment accorded to any person on whom the Watchtower organization, by its appointed elders, places the disfellowshipped label. He or she is viewed as one dead. The particular reason for the action is completely immaterial. It might have been for killing roaches on an army base, doing lawn work for a church, or simply having a birthday celebration. Or it might have been for acknowledging inability to accept 1914 as the date marked by the Bible, or that only certain persons should partake at the memorial celebration of Christ's death. In my own case, it was for eating a meal in a restaurant with my employer, who had formally withdrawn from the organization. The label, not the reason, determines the treatment.
The September 15, 1981 Watchtower, which incidentally provided the means for taking disfellowshipping action toward me, that's Ray Franz speaking, asked the question, quote, would upholding God's righteousness and his disfellowshipping arrangement mean that a Christian should not speak at all with an expelled person, not even saying hello? The end of quote. Ray says the article then refers to the text at 2 John, verses 9 to 11, which reads, quote, everyone that pushes ahead and does not remain in the teaching of the Christ does not have God. He that does remain in this teaching is the one that has both the Father and the Son. If anyone comes to you and does not bring this teaching, never receive him into your houses or say a greeting to him. For he that says a greeting to him is a sharer in his wicked works. End of the quote from 2 John. Ray says John's words are taken as ruling out any communication with organizationally expelled ones, not even allowing a simple hello. Those words, however, in no way support the claim.
First, it should be noted that what is at issue is the teaching of the Christ, not the teaching of some religious movement. John's first letter shows that for him, such teaching was centered on the fundamental Christian confession that Jesus was the Christ of God, who had sent him on earth in the flesh. The rest of the scriptures clearly show that the criterion for baptism was sincere belief that Jesus, the Nazarene, was indeed the Christ, and that he gave his life for mankind and had been resurrected, and putting in practice his teaching and morals. It was not belief in a complex set of unique teachings developed centuries later by some religious movement, such as the Watchtower organization, nor of observance of an equally complex set of organizationally determined policies. Differences of view on other teachings of lesser significance would not be reason for divisions and separations, some cutting off others, shutting them out from fellowship. Thus the apostle urges, and this is a quote from today's English version of Romans 14:1, "Accept among you the man who is weak in the faith, but do not argue with him about his personal opinion." Then he refers to that last phrase being on disputable matters in the NIV version.
The Watchtower endeavors to gloss over this by relegating the disputable matters to, quote, inconsequential matters of opinion, taste, or variations of conscience, unquote. This simply ignores the context, which shows that the apostle specifies such issues as the eating of certain foods and the observance of certain days as holy. This all from Romans 14:2-23. These were in no way inconsequential issues, particularly for Jewish believers. Belief in eating anything, that is in verse 2, would include eating of meats offered to idols, or the flesh of pigs, and these were matters of the greatest seriousness for Christians of Jewish origin. This is seen in that some were actually judging the standing of others with God on this basis, something very unlikely if, as the Watchtower would imply, this had to do with mere matters of taste, such as the incidental preferences of diet found in modern society, and which have nothing to do with religious scruples. The observance of certain days, that is in verses 5 and 6 of Romans 14, such as the Sabbath, was a very crucial point in Jewish worship, and violation of the Sabbath rest was counted among the greatest of sins. Jewish converts to Christianity would not easily adjust to viewing one day as all others. Yet, despite differences of viewpoint on such serious issues, the exhortation was not to use them in judging the standing of others, and not to let them be sources of separation. Watchtower policies failed to follow the apostolic counsel. They actually presume to do the opposite of what is said by making decisions on inward questionings, passing judgment on disputable matters, and using such debatable matters in condemning those who are not theirs to condemn, since the persons are each, as Paul says, someone else's servant, and whether he stands or fall, it is his own master's business. Paul expressing here the policy that he himself as an apostle would follow, not to judge others based on their religious scruples.
Mm-hmm.
They are servants of another master.
Let God be the judge.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I think to look at what they've done with Edersheim here is again an example of how they use the sources so selectively. This is the book they refer to, The Life and Times of Jesus the Messiah by Alfred Edersheim. This was put out during the life of Russell. He was a contemporary of Russell, and to use his book of over 1,000 pages, and by the way, he was a Jewish convert who later became a Christian minister, and put this out, spelling out as clearly as he could the Jewish background of what
life was like.
What life was like in the days of Jesus. And this, by the way, is many people's very favorite book on Jesus, as a life of him and the background of his ministry. So Edersheim had every reason to spell out the Jewish background, but not for the reason of the way he's used here, which is to justify the Watchtower's present policy. Edersheim would never be advocating that Christians today do what, after all, brought Christ to crucifixion, namely the Jewish restriction upon liberty of conscience and the things like the Sabbath, things like God's ways with men, the traditions of men, the very thing the Watchtower is citing, using Edersheim, the traditions of men are what got Jesus and the apostles persecuted, even to death. So I find it horrifying.
They're using it now as their model. And he's not quoting it for that reason, to use it as a model.
Not at all. So we're going to link here on your screen 2 videos we've done on Romans 14 and also one on one video rather on Romans 14 and another one on Psalm 139, where we discussed a text that the Watchtower habitually uses to justify hating those who hate you, as they translate it, right? David in Psalm 139 does use that expression, but is their use of it David's thought, even in the context of Psalm 139? So we'll put the links to those two videos right on your screen right now. And next time, Ray goes more deeply into this 2 John passage, how to treat those who do not remain in the teaching of the Christ.